Greetings, it is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my expose on the history of Magic the Gathering. Today, I'm introducing to you the starter sets that took over after Portal. Today is Starter 1999. Now, it was released on July 12th of 1999, and it had no new keywords, no new mechanics. It had a 173 card set, and like Portal before it, it wasn't tournament legal until October of 2005. Now, much like Portal, it was meant to basically replace it as a beginner set, as the starter set for new players. It did include certain things that were very similar to it. It separated out the normal text and the boldface text to kind of separate between quotes and the normal mechanics that were on the card. But unlike Portal, it did not use simplified rules. It used the exact same rules of the game. So all the terminology and all the information on the cards were exactly the same that you would get on any kind of advanced or expert packs. Now, like Portal, it did have certain things. It had no enchantments and no artifacts. It had very few instants. So it did have some instants, unlike Portal, but it had very few, mostly just sorceries. And it left out any creatures that had a tap ability. So any creature that would have normally had a tap ability did not have it in the set. Now, the majority of the set were, in fact, reprints from cards from other sets and such, but there were a number of cards which were original to this set. In fact, only 26 of its cards were in fact new. So this set was a little larger than your standard smaller expansion for an expanded ability, but it wasn't quite the size of a core set. Now, it was sold in 15-card booster packs that had the artwork of Denizen on the Deep on it. It was also sold in 5 40-card theme decks and a 2-player starter set. Now, the starter set had 2 decks, 2 playmats, a step-by-step guide for your first game, and a simplified rulebook. This contains some cards which were not found within the booster pack, so there were some cards that if you wanted them, you had to get the 2-player starter set, including 2 cards which were not printed anywhere else or have been sent, Royal Falcon and Willow Elf. It was also accompanied by the official starter game strategy guide. They also gave out 2-player game booster packs, which included 24 cards, a flip card, a rules card, instruction cards, everything that 2 players needed to get their first game started. There was no storyline associated with this set. So there were 2 cycles in this set. First was a vertical cycle of creatures that had the ability that once they were blocked, they could choose to deal their combat damage to the defending player instead of to the creature that's blocking them. Now, this ability was popular with wizards in this case because they thought it was a little less confusing than Trample, and though the fact is it really didn't catch on as ability, it has shown up in a multitude of cards. The entire cycle was in fact in the Impaler theme deck. Now, there was another cycle, of course. It was a cycle of vanilla 1-drop creatures. In fact, vanilla just meant they had no abilities whatsoever, and the 1-drop means they were 1/1 that cost you 1 mana of a color. There was also a pair of creatures that were 6/6s with no abilities, so if there was a paired mirrored group in the set. Now, there were 3 functional reprints, in fact, in this set, including Goblin Chariot for Raging Cougar, which had previously had a similar functional reprint anyway, but that was one of them. The 5 theme decks were a white deck called Blinding Fury, a black deck called Deadly Instinct, a red deck called Goblin Assault, a green deck called Impaler, and a blue deck called Time Curse. Now, the symbol for this set was, of course, a star. Now, there were a number of misprints in this set. Goblin Hero was printed as a gold star creature when it was clearly a common, so it should have been a black star. Mon's Goblin Raiders was printed the exact same way. Also in the set, the card Squall had a mana cost of 1 colorless, 1 green. When it was reprinted later on this year, it had a mana cost of 2 colorless, 1 green, and it was revealed that this was the proper number it should have been, and the first version of it was in fact the misprint. So let's talk about some of the cards from the set. There was Grim Tutor. You search your library for a card, put it in your hand, shuffle your library, and you lost 3 life. Of course, there was Armageddon, another one of the reprint cards, destroy all lands in play. Champion Lancer, prevent all damage that would be dealt to it by creatures. There was, of course, Counter Spell, Counter Target Spell. Denizen of the Deep, when it came into play, you returned all other creatures in play under your control to their owner's hands. So basically, you got it out and all of your other creatures returned to their owner's hands. There was Goblin General. When it attacked, all other goblin creatures got +1/+1 until end of turn. Cinderstorm. It would cost you 6 colorless mana and 1 red and did 7 damage to target creature or player. Pretty good bang for your buck, actually, for that spell. Goblin Settler. When it came into play, you destroyed target land. Last Chance. A red spell that gave you an extra turn after this one. But at the beginning of the end step of that turn, you lose the game. So you have 1 extra turn in order to win the game. There was Lovax. Do 5 damage to target player. It's actually kind of one of my favorites, especially when the ones that have the quote, catch on it. Loyal Sentry. When it blocks, destroy the attacking creature and Loyal Sentry. So both of them get destroyed, basically killed, when you're blocking with Loyal Sentry. There's Nature's Cloak. Green creatures gain Forest Walk until end of turn. It's a very interesting green spell. There's Phantom Warrior. It is unblockable. It cannot be blocked by creatures. You know, pretty good one. Piracy. For this turn, you may tap lands opponents controls for mana, but you can only use this mana in order to cast spells. Pride of Lions. This is part of that vertical cycle I talked about. It's the 4/4 one that when it would be blocked, you could choose to have it deal damage to the blocking creature's controller rather than to that blocking creature. There's Relentless Assault. After you attack, you would play this. You untap all creatures that attack this turn. You get an additional combat phase and an additional main phase after these. So effectively, you can attack again. Shrieking Spectre. When an attack, defending player discards a card. That's actually not bad. Stream of Acid. Destroy target land or non-black creature. A combination of land and creature destruction. Pretty good there too. There's Summer Bloom. You can play up to 3 additional lands on this turn. Thorn Elemental. There's the 7/7 one with that kind of strike through ability. If it's blocked, you could have it deal damage to the defending creature's owner or controller, I should say. It's the better one of the group of them, and I like Thorn Elemental a lot. Thunder Dragon. When it enters the battlefield, it does 3 damage to each creature without flying. It's actually not too bad. Tidings. You draw 4 cards. For the mana cost, drawing 4 cards with this one, it's actually not too bad. And the last one I want to talk about is, of course, Time Warp. You take an extra turn after this one. Time Warp is the classic take an extra turn card, and it has been printed in a bunch of sets, and this is actually one of the ones that has a version of it. So, really neat. So that's it for today. I introduced you to Starter 1999. It was Magic's attempt to create a starter deck after their experiments with Portal that they wanted to move beyond what they did there and make something new and original. Of course, just earlier they had released Portal 3 Kingdoms for an Asian market, showing the end of the Portal series, but also sort of evolving that into what it became here in the Starter 1999 series. It showed some new cards, but printed about many of them that were, of course, reprints. And it showed that you could use a simplified version of rules without really simplifying the rules. It kept a lot of the terminology the same. It made it easier for people in the beginner section to move on to those more advanced because they used the same terms, something they didn't do in Portal. So if any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave it in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel, the Empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon, linked in the description below. If you want to check out some more people that do some great content in the world of Magic the Gathering, I could recommend a few from my friends from the multiverse. Of course, Card Bazaar, They Said, We Said, and Tasty Snackies. Go ahead and check out their material. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.